She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another Coffee and Crime Time. Today we're talking about a case that's been ongoing since Father's Day of last year, 2020, and recent developments have given us a better idea of what happened to 18-year-old Linda Stoltzfoos. But before we dive right in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Casetify. Casetify is protection for your iPhone with personality. Their cases offer extreme protection, but they don't look like they do, if that makes sense. So they're not like bulky and ugly looking like back in the day when the only cases that would give you protection were like ginormous and they look like vaults. I drop my phone at least 16 times a day because I'm clumsy to begin with, and I always have a million things going on, so my hands are always full. I'm literally juggling all day long, and I love that I never have to have that moment of fear, you know, while my phone drops and then it's like face down and I'm just terrified about to pick it up, wondering if the screen is shattered and like my whole world has just been erased. Casetify cases come in a ton of different designs and colors with the option to customize by adding your name or initials. Like this one right here. Not only is it a really cool case because there's, I don't know, sand or liquid or something in there that moves around, so it's great for my ADD because I can always play with it, but it says Harlowe on it. And I'm not going to lie, you know, having a cool looking phone case is important. You want it to show off at least a little bit your personality, but obviously not breaking your phone is much more important, so you don't have to spend your hard-earned money getting your phone fixed or having to buy a new one. That's why Casetify's impact cases are engineered with a 2-layer construction of Chi-Tech, and they're drop test approved for drops up to 6.6 feet for the impact cases and 9.8 feet for ultra impact cases, which works for me fine. I'm only 5'4", so unless I'm throwing my phone up in the air or dropping it off a building, I think I'm going to be okay. I love also that the cases are antimicrobial, eliminating 99% of bacteria, because it is a fact that your phone is way dirtier and more gross than a toilet seat by like a huge margin. So a toilet seat has 1,201 bacteria per square inch, which sounds like a lot until you find out your cell phone has 25,127 bacteria per square inch. Casetify is also doing their part for our planet, which every company should be doing all they can. And all impact and ultra impact cases are made with 50% recycled material. Okay, so we have cool designs, a ton of colors and styles to choose from. Look how adorable my little skeleton yoga case is. There's tons of different designs. You're sure to find something that you love, that speaks to you, that represents you. You have the option to personalize, they're antimicrobial, and they're super protective. All great things rolled into one awesome phone case to protect your phone. And Casetify has dared me to drop my phone with the Casetify case on, so let's do that. I want to tell you, I did this like 3 or 4 times for, you know, the B-roll for this, and I just was not concerned the entire time that my phone was going to be broken. If you want to get your very own Casetify case, go to casetify.com/stephanieharlowe to get 15% off. These cases are great. They're only 13 millimeters thin. They're compatible with QI and wireless charging. They use this Chi-Tech material on the case bumper to protect all 4 corners and absorb shock. They've raised the bezels on the cases to protect the screen from top to bottom, and they're customizable with a range of fonts, colors, and designs. Once again, go to casetify.com/stephanieharlowe to get 15% off your Casetify case now. Thank you so much to Casetify for sponsoring this channel. We appreciate you. Let's dive in. This is a very sad case. I mean, they're all sad. I don't mean to minimize any cases that we've covered before, but I do try to approach each victim I talk about with a fresh heart. And Linda's story really broke my fresh heart. She was 18 years old. She lived with her parents and several siblings. From what I can understand, she had 9 brothers and sisters who all lived at home with her and her parents. There's Sarah Ann, Anna Mae, Sadie Marie, Ada Ruth, Eli Kay, Stephen James, Susan Joy, Lloyd Andrew, and Luke Samuel, all her brothers and sisters, and they were living at 519 Beechdale Road in Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania, and this is located in Lancaster County. Bird in Hand is in the heart of Amish country, and Linda's family are Old Order Amish, and apparently Old Order Amish is one of the 4 main Amish orders. Old Order Amish descend from the Amish Mennonites, and they have strict rules involving dress, with some communities prohibiting things like zippers and buttons. They wear dark clothes, usually black. They also have regulations on hair. Women aren't really allowed to cut their hair. Men must grow beards at an acceptable length. They also avoid modern technology like electricity, telephones, motor vehicles, etc. And I just have to say, we have a pretty large and flourishing Amish and Mennonite population here where I live in New York, and they are the nicest people. They work hard, they treat each other and outsiders with love and respect. They teach their children from a very young age to also work hard and put their, best foot forward. I may not understand everything that they do because it's not how I grew up, but I really, truly respect and admire them for living their lives in the way they feel is best, despite what, the outside world is doing. Linda's father, Lloyd, is a cabinet maker. He works out of his home, and her mother, Susie, I believe, stayed home and raised her children. Out of this very large family, Linda, at 18, was the oldest. From what I can tell, she was a very sweet girl. There isn't a lot about her out there because she obviously didn't have social media. And most of her family, they don't want to be interviewed by reporters with cameras because they're, not fans of technology. But her uncle, Marvin Fisher, who married into the family and is not Amish, he's sort of become the family spokesperson because he knows the public have been invested in Linda since she went missing last summer. And he and the rest of the family have been so appreciative of the outpouring of help and support they've received from their community during this very hard past 10 months. Linda went missing as she was walking home from church on June 21st, 2020, and she was last seen walking in the Bird in Hand area, but she never made it home to celebrate Father's Day with her father. For 10 months, she was missing, and an extensive search was kicked into action that included hundreds of volunteers, the FBI, local police, state police, drones, canine units, horses, ATVs, and ground-penetrating radar. A group of trained volunteers with the Middle Creek Search and Rescue Team also donated their time and effort, and altogether, 2,338 people searched for Linda, and that added up to 15,000 man-hours devoted to finding her. On June 22nd, Officer Nathan Westerman of the East Lampeter Township Police responded to the Stoltzfoos home when they called the report in that their daughter was missing. Apparently, Linda had been expected at a youth group meeting that she was supposed to go to after church. She was supposed to have come home to change her clothes before the meeting, but she never came home and she didn't make it to the youth group. When her parents found out that she hadn't attended the meeting, they looked in her room for her church clothes, and when they didn't find them, they drew the conclusion that she had not made it home after church. The police found out that Linda had been to church services located on Stumptown Road, and this isn't far from where she lived, and the service had lasted from 9 till noon, so she would have been walking home around noon, and this would help police later when searching for signs of Linda on local surveillance cameras. Officer Westerman went to the church and spoke with a woman named Lillian Ebersole, who'd seen and spoken to Linda that day after church. She said they'd had a good conversation, Linda seemed to be fine, and Linda had told Lillian that she was heading right home to change before walking to the youth group. Lillian said that when Linda walked away, she was barefoot, carrying her shoes, and wearing her traditional church clothes, a tan dress, white apron, and black head covering. Linda's father, Lloyd, believed his daughter would take the same route home that she took when walking to church, which was to take Stumptown Road to Beachdale Road. It was the most direct path between the church and her home. The police talked to a lot of people who knew Linda because I personally think at first they thought she might have just run away. It's not uncommon to see young people in the Amish community sometimes feeling restricted by the rules and they try to leave. But everyone they talked to said that Linda was very happy and content with her life. She was always in a good mood. She loved her family. She helped tutor students in the Amish community who had learning disorders, and she was also employed as a tutor and an assistant at the Durlock Parochial School. She also had several trips and events planned for the following couple of weeks that she was really looking forward to, so basically she would have no reason to leave unexpectedly. On July 8th, 2020, Detective Scott Eelman of the East Lampeter Township Police spoke to a Mr. Isaac Ish, who lived on Stumptown Road. Isaac told the detective that on the day Linda had gone missing, June 21st, he'd been sitting on the front porch of his house, and between 12:30 and 12:45, he saw a red sedan traveling east on Stumptown Road coming from the direction of Linda's church. He noticed the car because it turned around, so it passed him and then it turned around on Red Lane and it paused for about 1 minute before going back the way it had come on Stumptown Road, going back towards Linda's church and past Isaac's house again. Isaac saw two people in the car, the driver, who he described as a white male with dark hair and darker skin, and in the passenger seat there seemed to be someone there, but he didn't get a good look. The police collected video surveillance from this area and they saw a red Kia Rio. There was some damage on the car. There was a spoiler on the trunk. There was some stickers on the trunk. And they also saw something white. It was through the open driver's side window that they could see it, but police believe the white object was located in the passenger seat. Now, they tracked this vehicle down and found its owner, 35-year-old Justo Smoker of Paradise, Pennsylvania. The police found out that Justo was employed at Dutchland Inc., and this is a company that specializes in engineering, manufacturing, and constructing concrete tanks. And this company was located off of Highway 41 in Gap, Pennsylvania, about 10 miles away from Bird in Hand. So the police went to Dutchland Inc. to compare the car that they'd seen on surveillance to Justo Smoker's car, which was parked in the parking lot. The color of the car, the wheels, the spoiler on the back, the stickers, the damage done to the vehicle, they all appeared to match the vehicle seen on surveillance. The police stayed and waited for Justo to leave after work, and then they followed him back to his apartment at 3250 Lincoln Highway in Paradise, which was just over 6 miles away from Dutchland Inc. in Gap. The next day, on July 9th, Justo Smoker was questioned by police at his apartment. He said he didn't know Linda, he had no information about her disappearance. He also claimed he hadn't even been in the area on that day at all, and this is not stated in the probable cause affidavit, but obviously when he said this, the police knew he was lying because his vehicle had been seen on surveillance in the area of Stumptown Road, not only on the day that Linda went missing, but right around the time that she went missing. They not only have his vehicle on camera, but it seems as if they have the actual moment of the abduction on camera as well. On surveillance, the red Kia Rio was observed traveling south on Beechdale before pulling off to the side of the road and out of the view of a camera at 12:36 p.m. The camera also picks up a lone person walking and wearing light-colored clothing, walking south on the east side of Beechdale Road at around 12:41 p.m., and this person is believed to have been Linda. Then a second person comes into view of the camera, and this person is believed to be Justo Smoker, and he walks towards Linda, coming from the area where his vehicle was pulled off to the side of the road and then crossing the street to get to the same side that Linda was on. The affidavit says, quote, "After encountering Stoltzfoos, there appears to be motion towards the area of the head of Stoltzfoos, consistent with placing something over her head, and the two people walk back towards the parked car at 12:41 p.m., end quote. This is when the car passed by the home of Isaac. Remember Isaac? He was sitting outside in his front porch of his home. He saw this red car drive past him twice, and at this point it's believed that the white object seen in the passenger seat was Linda with something over her head, something that Justo Smoker placed there when he abducted her off the street. And I would like to say, this is just my opinion and speculation, but I personally believe that Justo Smoker specifically targeted a young Amish girl that day. I think he was waiting for one to come by, and Linda happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's in an area known for its Amish population. Being from that area, he would know that most Amish people walked everywhere because they don't drive cars. And the area that he parked on Beechdale, out of sight of the surveillance cameras, was near an Amish farm lane. So not only did he know he would have a good chance of running into an Amish person here, but he also probably knew that if he was close enough to that property, a property of an Amish person, there would be no surveillance cameras there. This is just my thought about it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I personally think he'd either already been watching Linda and keeping track of her habits and her movements for some time, or he just felt like attacking a member of the Amish community that day and he was lying in wait for one. A major reason I feel this way is because prior to Linda's abduction, a group of Amish women had been walking on June 20th, the day before her abduction, when they saw a 4-door red vehicle drive past them 3 times, 2 miles away from where Linda would be taken the next day. They described the driver as a dark-skinned man with curly dark hair, and this same day, 2 other Amish girls were walking on Hess Road when a red car passed them, and as it passed, the young man, he looked at the two girls in his rearview mirror, which caused them to be afraid and cut across a farm lane. They then saw the red car stop at an intersection and remain there in the wrong lane with its four-way lights flashing. So the four-way lights are, I think people call them hazards too, so his hazards were on. A local man also saw the car parked in the wrong lane with its hazards on, and he watched the car for several minutes because he found it to be suspicious. Another young Amish woman by herself this same day was walking on Hess Road when a red car with a dark-haired male driving it passed her 4 times, driving very slowly. 4 times. The woman was so terrified, and who can blame her, that she walked to a group of fishermen who were parked in the area, and then she hid in a nearby barn so the man driving the car wouldn't see her and wouldn't know where she'd gone. She then saw the car pull over into a field and wait just north of the barn she was in. So after Linda was taken the next day, police pulled surveillance from the areas that these young women had been walking in and observed what appeared to be Husto Smoker's car traveling south on Hess Road at the same time of these reports. The FBI also reviewed Smoker's cell phone records and verified that he was in that area at that time. It's also been discovered that on June 20th, so the same day that he's stalking these young girls, the day before Linda goes missing, Husto Smoker had bought 2 24-ounce beers from Lincoln Beverage in Lancaster, and then an hour later he bought, I think it was almost $17 worth of alcohol from the wine and spirit store in Gap, Pennsylvania. So this guy is just getting all liquored up and then driving around, stalking Amish girls, scaring the hell out of them because, in my opinion, he's the definition of a predator. This was premeditated. The police also reviewed surveillance footage from the Weavertown Mennonite School, located at 73 Orchard Road in Bird in Hand, and this footage showed the red Kia, Smoker's red Kia, pass by the school on Church Road. A passenger can be seen in the passenger seat, and the car made a quick turn into the parking lot and pulled behind the Weavertown Mennonite Church. The Kia does not show back up on camera until 5 minutes later, at which point it returned to Church Road and continued east. After this, several witnesses saw what we believe to be Husto Smoker in his red car with a female passenger. A couple named Sarah and Isaac, who are part of the Amish community, were walking on Amish Road in Gap at around 1:33 p.m. on June 21st when they saw a red vehicle traveling north on Amish Road. Sarah said she saw what she believed was an Amish female in the passenger seat. She believed that this was an Amish woman because the woman in the car was wearing a white apron and a black head covering, but when Sarah waved, the young woman did not wave back. Sarah, who, like I said, was part of the Amish faith, she found all of this odd because in her area, Amish women did not wear black head coverings, and it was highly unusual for an Amish woman to be riding in a car, especially while wearing her church clothes. When the woman in the car did not wave back, Sarah became more suspicious because it is Amish tradition to wave when you pass each other. Her husband Isaac described the male in the driver's seat as white with dark hair, darker skin, and a dark beard and mustache. Another witness, who was also Amish, was Gideon King III, and on this same day, June 21st, he was traveling with his horse and carriage on Amish Road between 12:15 and 1:30 p.m., about a mile away from where Sarah and Isaac had been walking. He saw a red vehicle, and Gideon also noticed that the female passenger was wearing a white apron and a black head covering. And he thought it was strange because he feels and believes that an Amish woman should not be traveling in a car while wearing her church clothes. Another witness, Amos Fisher, who was also traveling via horse and carriage on Peters Road, reported that on June 21st, just before 1:30 p.m., he saw a red Kia traveling north on Redwell Road, just north of Amish Road. The car turned right on Peters Road and passed Amos going in the opposite direction, so Amos was able to get a good look at the driver, a Hispanic male with curly black hair who he later identified as Husto Smoker. Amos also saw that the car's passenger was a woman wearing a black head covering. So here's what I think happened, right? Husto sees Linda walking. Whether he was after her specifically or just someone like her, I can't be sure. I think it's the latter. He gets out of his car, jogs over to her, and he asks her if she wants a ride, since he can see she's walking barefoot. She's carrying her shoes at this point. She politely declines because she's wearing her church clothes and it goes against what she believes in to accept a ride in a car, while she's wearing her church clothes. Also, she probably isn't too keen on taking rides from strangers. So he took her by force. He put something over her head and he threatened her to follow him. He probably told her that if she went along with what he wanted and did what he said, she wouldn't get hurt. They got in the car and he starts driving, but Linda was probably freaking out, right? She's crying, terrified out of her mind. So he pulled over behind the church, the Mennonite church, out of sight from the street. He removed the bag or whatever he had used to cover her head. Maybe he said to her that, he wouldn't put it back on if she promised to behave herself, to calm down and not draw attention to them, which is why following this, several witnesses noticed a young Amish woman in the passenger seat of his car. If he'd not removed the bag or the thing that he put over her head, they probably would not have noticed that Linda was Amish. So the police get a warrant for Justo Smoker's cell phone records, and they find out where he was on June 21st at the time that Linda went missing. He was right where she went missing from. His cell phone data also showed that he'd been in the area of 3104 Harvest Road in Ronks, Pennsylvania. That's just about a mile away from Bird in Hand, anywhere from 1 to 3 miles, depending on where in Bird in Hand you are. 2 days after Linda had been abducted, Trooper Josh Whiteside had responded to this address after getting a report about a suspicious vehicle parked in the rear of a business that was called Harvest Structures. And this is an Amish-owned business that makes and sells custom sheds. So I believe it was an employee or the owner of the business. He called police and said that he saw a red Kia Rio pull into the parking lot and park. He wrote down the license plate. It was confirmed the car belonged to Justo Smoker, and he said he'd seen the vehicle drive onto the property at about 5 p.m. on June 21st. The car only had one occupant at this time, a dark-skinned, dark-haired man in his 20s or 30s, and this man sort of walked around the building looking into windows and doors before he got back into his car and left. But later, he came back. He parked in the same place he had parked before, next to some railroad tracks by, the woods. And this time, he backed his car into the parking spot. So, on July 10th, the Pennsylvania State Police Forensics Search Team descended on this area, and they discovered some things. They found some articles of women's clothing buried 6 to 8 inches underground in a wooded area. There was a white bra and a pair of dark-colored stockings, which were later identified by the Stoltzfoos family as having belonged to Linda. The bra and stockings had been knotted together before they'd been buried. This same day, police discovered from Justo's phone records that he'd been in the area of 3104 Harvest Drive on June 21st at the same time after 1:45 in the afternoon. He was also there several other times. I talk about that later. But I think he was there something like 7 times between the 21st and the 27th of June. The DNA of Justo Smoker was also found on Linda's stockings, so he was interviewed again on July 10th. He initially denied being in the area at all. Then he modified his story a bit to say, that he did now and then take back roads between Loyola and his apartment, and he believed that on June 21st, that's what he did, which would have led him to this area by Harvest Road. But he still claimed that he hadn't seen Linda and he knew nothing about her disappearance. He did say that he was the only one who drove his car. He had no passenger in his car on June 21st, and he admitted that he'd been drinking beer and liquor during the day while driving through the Bird in Hand area. Also, remember earlier, we briefly talked about Justo's activities on June 20th, the day before Linda vanished. He'd followed a group of Amish women, then he followed another group, just 2 Amish women, and then he stalked a single Amish woman who was so scared that she hid in a barn. He also bought some alcohol on this day at 2 different places in the area. Well, on June 20th, Justo Smoker also purchased 2 pairs of reusable latex gloves from the Dollar General in Paradise, Pennsylvania. Remember, Paradise is where he lived. These gloves have yet to be located, even though they searched his residence and his vehicle and a storage area that was in his name. Video surveillance also showed that on June 21st, the day of the abduction, Justo was in Walmart at around 9:30 a.m. He was alone, driving his Kia Rio, wearing a white t-shirt, black shorts, and gray sneakers with white soles. These gray sneakers have also not been located. At 10:13 a.m., Justo bought 2 8-packs of disposable gloves, 3 pairs of 54-centimeter shoelaces, and 2 pairs of black 54-centimeter bootlaces. The shoelaces have never been found, neither were any shoes or boots that appeared to need new shoelaces. A few hours later, Husto bought another two 24-ounce beers from Loyola Beverage in Loyola, Pennsylvania, and then at 12:16 p.m., Husto was seen on surveillance entering the parking lot of a store called Sheetz in Lancaster. He parked, he then walked to an outside garbage can, threw something out. He left the parking lot at 12:22, and no other passengers were in his car at this time. Later that day at around 3:30, a neighbor of Husto's saw him washing his car in the parking lot of the apartment complex, and he noticed that Husto was paying special attention to wiping down the inside of this vehicle. The eyewitness account was confirmed when police found a message sent from Husto on Facebook where he told someone, who's not been identified, that he had just finished washing his car. When the police had the vehicle in custody, they discovered the car mats had recently been removed and a bottle of opened bleach was found in the trunk along with an open bottle of rum. The floor mats of the car have not been located yet. In the affidavit, it says, quote, "Evidence gathered during this investigation shows that Husto Smoker did forcibly kidnap Linda Stoltzfoos on June 21, 2020 at 12:41 in the afternoon when she was walking on Beechdale Road. Evidence to include witness statements, video surveillance, and cell phone records show that Husto Smoker placed Stoltzfoos in his car and proceeded to transport her to the eastern side of Lancaster County to include some remote areas within the Welsh Mountains, which spans in excess of 1,000 acres of dense wooded area. Husto Smoker then traveled back to the area of 3104 Harvest Drive, a location where a bra and stockings belonging to Linda Stoltzfoos and with his DNA were found to be buried in the ground. Husto Smoker then returned to his home, where he is observed thoroughly cleaning his car alone. Evidence suggests that Husto Smoker discarded items known to belong to him, specifically shoes and car floor mats, items commonly known to contain trace evidence. Evidence demonstrates that Smoker was stalking other female Amish girls in the area of the abduction of Stoltzfoos on the day before he kidnapped her. Within hours prior to both stalking incidents on 6/20/20 and the abduction on 6/21/20, Smoker made purchases of alcohol and gloves. Based upon the totality of the evidence obtained through this investigation and detailed herein, all evidence leads to the inevitable conclusion that Husto Smoker killed Linda Stoltzfoos during the commission of her kidnapping and discarded her body. I also read in a September 2020 article that Husto was sending texts and multimedia messages on the day that Linda went missing, like right around the time. He texted 15 times to his brother between 1 and 3 p.m. on June 21st, and it's unknown what these messages said or how much Husto's brother knew. But at this time, police have not filed any charges against the brother, so we don't know what was in these texts, whether he was telling his brother that he was kidnapping and murdering this girl, or if he was just saying, oh, hey, out and about, driving around, stalking Amish girls. On July 10th, Husto Smoker was arrested and charged with kidnapping and false imprisonment, and then the search for Linda continued. At this point, in July of 2020, the police believed that she was no longer alive, and they were looking for a body. Homicide charges would later be added the following December, all of which Smoker has pled not guilty to. But 10 months after Linda disappeared, the human remains of a young woman were found, buried 42 inches deep alongside some railroad tracks on Highway 41, behind the very same company, Dutchland Inc., where Husto was employed at. And he was employed here at the time of Linda's kidnapping. The body was found on railroad land, wrapped in a tarp, and an autopsy revealed that she'd been killed by suffocation and a stab wound to her neck. Recent charging documents have revealed that law enforcement believes the area where Linda's stockings and bra were found was the original burial site. And cell phone records show that Husto was at this location multiple times, so it's believed that he killed her. Within a few hours of her kidnapping, he buried her behind Harvest Road, and then he went back and he moved her. I also happen to believe that Linda was sexually assaulted by Husto. That's never explicitly said. It's just my opinion, but it would make sense why his DNA was found on her stockings. So he buried her body behind the business in Ronks off of Harvest Street, and he went back a few days later to move the body to the location that it was inevitably found in behind his old job. He'd been to the Harvest Drive location 7 times between June 22nd and June 27th, and 3 of those times was on June 23rd. Let's talk a little bit about who Husto Smoker was before he did this. He was a multiple sports season athlete in high school. He was on both the football and wrestling teams. He was actually considered to be a really, really great wrestler. He did pretty well in classes. He had a 3.0 GPA, and he was even given a senior spotlight in the school's yearbook. His mother claims that after high school, due to a childhood of hardship, Husto turned to drugs and began committing crimes as a juvenile and then as an adult. He was charged with a felony as a juvenile, and then in February of 2007, when he was 21, he pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including burglary, robbery, and criminal trespass. His parents, Deb and Vernon, they pleaded with the judge in this case during sentencing, saying, quote, "We do believe in tough love. We believe there needs to be punishment for the crime, but I would ask you, I guess, to be merciful," end quote. The judge in the case, Joseph Madenspacher, sentenced Husto to 12 years in prison, but he only served half of that before being released in February of 2019. According to an article from Lancaster Online, Husto held up several businesses in 2006 using a BB gun with his younger brother, Victor. His defense attorney said that Husto had been living on the street, just trying to survive before he was adopted by his parents at the age of 7. The judge felt that his initial sentence was fair, considering a gun had been used and the victims would obviously have no way of knowing it wasn't a real gun. And he said that the sentence was to ensure society was protected, but he believed it was short enough and fair enough that Husto could get out of prison and still lead a reasonable life, which, as we can see, that did not happen. And I would also like to point out that if Husto had served his full sentence, Linda Stoltzfoos would still be alive today with her parents, leading her happy life. There seems to be a lot of questioning because the police did hold a press conference about this, and towards the end, when she opened it up for questioning, it seemed like a lot of reporters wanted to get information about how the police had found their way to the place where Linda was buried. There seems to be some sort of speculation, and I don't think that it's wrong or right because it is just speculation, but there seems to be speculation that Husto made a deal with the DA and with the police where if he led them to Linda's body, he would, get some sort of deal, maybe a lighter sentence. I personally think that it's just they weren't going to seek the death penalty, so he'll probably be in prison forever. But if he did make some deal, it was probably to take the death penalty off the table. That's my opinion. But during the press conference, she was very clear to say she could not talk about that. So they kept asking her, was there some deal made? How did the police find their way to the spot? How did they know where Linda would be? And the woman kept responding, I can't talk about this, due to I think privacy issues or ongoing case issues. So I do think that's definitely what happened.
Heather, there's a lot of speculation out there in comments that he contacted you guys and told you where the body was. Can you address that at all? And if you've made a decision to not seek the death penalty in exchange for the information where the body was?
Sure, I was anticipating that question. Unfortunately, I cannot comment on that time. I am ethically prohibited from commenting on certain things by the professional rules of conduct.
Have you made a decision on seeking the death penalty?
We have not.
I don't know why the media is focusing on it so much. To me, it's not going to make a huge difference. I think what's most important to Linda's parents is getting her body so they can give her a proper burial. So they probably care less about Husto Smoker being put to death than having their daughter home with them. They probably just obviously want him to see justice, but I think life in prison would probably be good enough for that. I don't know what happened here. I feel bad if Husto had a hard childhood, but he was adopted when he was 7, and according to his records and his own parents, all throughout that time, and even in going into high school, he did very well. He played sports. His grades were good. He seemed to have friends. The school liked him. They gave him a senior spotlight. So what happened after high school, that would be tied back to his troubled childhood, I guess. So after high school, he gets into drugs and he starts doing the wrong things. And probably because of the drugs, he was robbing places so that he could get money for more drugs. I get that. But I find it very hard to have sympathy for somebody who hurts and kills other people. I don't care what you've gone through in your life. And that's a bad way to say it. It's not that I don't care. Of course I care. I don't want anybody, especially children, to go through hardships. I don't want children to grow up, not feeling safe or feeling like they have to act out because of what's happened to them in their life. However, Linda Stoltzfoos has nothing to do with that. She was just walking down the road. I do think that he attacked her specifically because she was Amish. I think he felt that maybe she was more vulnerable. Maybe because she wasn't in a car, he'd be able to get her quicker. Maybe he's got something against the Amish people. I don't know, just my speculation. Maybe he just thought, they wouldn't fight back as hard. I don't know what he was thinking, and I don't know how something goes from, robberies and, taking a BB gun and holding up a store to what I believe is sexual assault and then murder. I don't know how that happens. So in my opinion, he's probably just not a good person to begin with. I've been seeing a very troubling pattern in criminal cases this past couple of years, where every time somebody does something wrong, their family and their defense attorney, they have like an excuse. And it's usually something that's, really hard to prove. Like you can't prove that this led to this. So for instance, they've had a mental illness that nobody's ever known about, never talked about. They've never been diagnosed, but they've struggled with it alone. Or B, he had a bad childhood. We're not going to be specific about what the bad childhood is, but he had a bad childhood. So just take our word for it that bad childhood led to what he did. And it could be, but you can't find a direct correlation. But what you can find is a direct correlation between many, many people who grow up with bad childhoods, which you could say even more than bad childhoods, like they're abused, they're neglected, they're verbally, emotionally, physically tortured, and they do not go on to perpetuate that cycle of abuse. They don't go on to hurt anybody else. So we have evidence that a lot of people have bad childhoods. A lot of people have issues with their mental health, and they don't go on to hurt and kill other people. So I don't really like this defense because it just seems like a cop-out now. It seems like everybody now is using this, I have a mental health disorder, or, I had a bad childhood. That cannot be an excuse, and we really can't let it be an excuse. Like we can't give them less punishment for what they did because they feel justified in doing it because of something that happened to them, because that's going to set a precedent and it's going to start a pattern of people just saying, I can do whatever I want. And as long as I can show that I've had a shitty life, people will be understanding and I'll get less punishment. I just think that that's a really bad precedent to set. But that's just my opinion. I know some people are more forgiving than I am, but it's not me. I feel like the more the system kind of excuses and justifies this behavior, the more people are going to do it because they're just going to follow what they see. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. This is very sad. I don't understand what he could have been thinking. I can't imagine what was going through her mind. She's Amish. She's lived a very sheltered life. She is 18 years old, still living at home, going to church, not having to be forced to. She's lived a very sheltered life. She was probably naive. She probably had no idea what was happening. She was probably so terrified. And it's not right. And it's not right to let this guy off because he wants to, point to a troubled childhood. A lot of people had a troubled childhood and they don't go on to do this. And I just am terrified thinking of the women that he was stalking the day before on June 20th, because the first group, there was, I think, 5 girls in that group. So he probably didn't do anything with them because there were so many of them. The second group was just 2 girls, which is probably why they saw him wait for them and park and wait in the wrong lane with his directionals or his hazards on, because he was probably thinking, I can handle 2 girls. And then that single girl, I'm just so glad she had the foresight to run and hide in a barn, because if she hadn't, it might have been her. But that's all I have on this case for now. I believe that he is going to be having a trial soon, so we will stay updated on it. Let me know what you think about this case in the comment section. Don't forget to check out Casetify. Also, don't forget to like this video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on social media. My handles are in the description box, and so is the link to my podcast, Crime Weekly, that I host every week with Derek Levasseur. New episodes come out every Friday. Thank you guys so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and please stay safe.
Water levee don't break now, and the bottle's going straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood